The media of this world, like TV news, Time magazine, documentaries, newspapers, and most movies, are meant to cement a reality for people. It's there to impose a reality on people. It's a reality that's theirs and not naturally yours. The media of this world, for the most part, exists to mislead the population and shape its worldview. The evidence of this is now overwhelming. If there is a war that, quote, they would like to fight, the media is used to get the population to support it. Think about this. Was there ever a home country history book outside of Germany that said that their country was the bad guy in a war? In every single conflict from 1776 through today's Syria, the United States just happens to always be the good guy, and on the other side is a really bad guy, like Saddam Hussein. Think about that. Do you really think that's possible? Where you've always been the good guy? Everybody's home country has always been the good guy? Like, a man has been fighting with his wife for 40 years. In every single case, he did nothing at all to start the fight. She did it every time, but in every case he finishes it, just like the United States finishes these wars and does away with the bad guy. No one would believe that, but everybody thinks their own flag was the good guy in every single war. This by itself proves propaganda through media has always been the case. To those who can see, the most obvious manifestation of the media stage show is the ridiculous and fake confrontation between left and right, put on display in political news shows. All of this is a vaudeville act. John McCain was probably best friends with people like Chuck Schumer in the back room. On TV, the fake conflict appears like Chris Matthews versus Bill O'Reilly, or Rachel Maddow versus Sean Hannity. If you're a watcher of Fox News on the right, or MSNBC on the left, congratulations, asshole! You're a resident on the Maine animal farm. It's basically President Snow's capital from the Hunger Games. A CNN watcher who believes what Anderson Cooper is telling him is real is living in the main cell block or pen of the farm. These people are chickens in a dark warehouse, pushed up against 200 million other chickens being injected with antibiotics and on the Central Tyson Ranch. Every so often, though, a chicken gets out or successfully escapes the main ranch and pen. Now, Big Brother Tyson knows that chickens will get out from time to time, and it has plans for that contingency called the Graduated Animal Farm. Note, an escaped chicken is one who questions his current conditions and sees his state of affairs in the main antibiotic warehouse and pen is quite literally shit. A few chickens know deep down into their feathers that there's a greater truth in the world than what the coop broadcasts on CNN. After decades of political parties flip-flopping back and forth, a few chickens on the Tyson Ranch see that nothing ever changes. The trajectory of government in every major area always seems to stay the same and never moves off the line. For example, nothing ever happens to abortion when the Republicans get in control, does it? So who could possibly believe the right versus left conflict is actually real? Therefore, every day a few chickens question their circumstances on the main Tyson Ranch and begin to climb the gates to get out. The system knows its own ruse is pathetic, so the system itself has built other pens and other ranches just outside the gates of the main farm to catch and collect the escaped fowl. Today, for example, a few chickens will, quote, graduate out of the old crafted stage show of CNN's fake news. The escapees clear the wall with little resistance. Escapees are quite pleased and find themselves living in a place that they no longer realize is another farm. It's better than the old dark warehouse with injectable antibiotics. These new pens outside seem to be free range, and the fences aren't really noticeable. However, these chickens that have, quote, escaped don't realize they are still on the same Tyson Ranch. I will present a partial list here of the graduated animal farms and farmers that lie just outside President Snow's capital, where most bird brains still reside. These are just some of the well-known graduated animal farmers: Alex Jones, Rush Limbaugh, Bill Maher, the Lionel Nation, Glenn Beck, Sean Hannity, Michael Savage, Mark Levin, The Economist magazine, the Financial Times, the Atlantic magazine. And of course there are an array of many YouTubers. Stefan Molyneux, the Young Turks, USA Watchdog, the SGT Report, the list goes on and on and on. Note, all conservative talk radio is a graduated animal farm of some kind. All of it. When people find these other pens after they've escaped, as chickens, they think they're finally getting the complete truth of what's really going on. Oh, it's so exciting finding this new information. There's so much taught in the new pens that CNN never dared to talk about. They sensed back in the day that something wasn't quite right in the world and that Anderson Cooper was holding back on them. And these new guys that they found confirm how correct they were. How wonderful to be out of the main Tyson pen and in these new graduated animal farms. Each graduated animal farm is very different, and so are the livestock that reside on each farm. A lot of different types of chickens escape. The graduated animal farmers are specialists over their particular type of livestock. For example, Farmer Alex Jones is expert at gathering up all the escapees who think that the government is lying about everything, those who want an armed revolt, and other, quote, radicals who see the government is, in fact, criminal. Those in control of all the farms, say President Snow and all the people around him, they don't mind if a few million chickens on the Alex Jones farm are really shown the lies, fraud, and corruption. Yes, they're delivered real truth. They gladly give away that information, for it keeps them from looking for the real truth, and it keeps them far away from things that these chickens can never know. The Economist magazine Animal Farm is a lot different than Farmer Jones's. It's more like a retreat and spa that gathers people who don't think the regular news is actually lying to them. It's just that it's intentionally dumbed down for the masses who are not as smart as they are. They don't really look upon CNN as nefarious like Alex Jones's animals do. They just think that a CNN, quote, simplification isn't a complete picture because it's a necessary Cliff Notes version for the dummies that don't have big degrees like they do. So again, they read The Economist and The Atlantic magazine and feel good about how smart they are. Graduated farms like The Economist and The Atlantic seem to reveal the world in a high-level way that smart people can understand, and one that the guy who does their laundry can't understand. It's the same exact lie, though, but with big words and more detail. Nevertheless, the chickens there are very satisfied and believe they're finally getting the real news delivered intelligently. Each graduated animal farmer well-positioned around the main Tyson ranch is most expert at one thing, convincing their livestock they finally have broken free and are now getting 100% of the truth. The point of the graduated animal farm is to keep people away from the most important truths by convincing them not even to look for it. This is done by giving away much of the lesser truths of this world, which is like keeping the chickens well fed. To do this, the farmers must serve the animals a high-quality feed so they don't even think about escaping again or trying to find another pen. For example, Alex Jones all day long will expose the Fed, he'll expose the banking system, he'll give away components of 9/11, he'll give real truth away on his farm. There's tremendous truth exposed on most animal farms, but as long as Alex, for example, does it in a way that makes him look like a madman to the rest of the chickens, he can deliver real information to his livestock without the other chickens thinking they are missing out on something by not being in his pen. Create a mental image. Picture the other animals walking up to Alex Jones's gate and looking in on his Infowar pen in shock. What they see in there looks so effed up, so nuts, so crazy, they want no part of it and they flap their wings to get away in the other direction. What they see is Farmer Alex is screaming at his livestock with a bullhorn, his pants are down. Now, much of what he's saying seems interesting, but no one's really listening carefully. Nobody looking in from the outside is giving it much credence because now something other crazy is going on, like the fat man in there is jello wrestling with Jesse Ventura. See, Alex Jones's pen is meant to look bizarre because it's supposed to turn people off. This is exactly the reason he screamed at Piers Morgan in the gun debate on CNN and he made himself look like a raving lunatic. He did that on purpose. Look, even a 9th grade debating club knows that in order to win an argument or a debate, you must stay cool and calm. Screaming in somebody's face that, quote, 1776 will commence again if you take our guns. That's not a winning strategy in bringing in new people or neutral onlookers or onlookers. Alex knows this. Alex's farm appears so bizarre, the other animals who look over into it are convinced that none of it can possibly be true. In fact, they assume the opposite must be true. For if Farmer Alex is preaching that, say, milk does a body good, most will infer that just the opposite, that milk is some kind of poison. If Farmer Alex says 19 guys with box cutters didn't do 9/11, to most people looking in, that surely means that there's no reason to ever question CNN's version of events. Most chicken escapees choose less radical pens than Alex Jones's farm. For example, there's a little farm down the road called Glenbeck Ranch that seems more rational while also exposing the deplorable conditions of their old Tyson warehouse, but in a friendlier way. The concept of the graduated animal farm is like that of a dam. When pressure builds, the dam must have a way to release water, to release truth to the masses, lest the entire dam may break. See, they release as much truth as necessary to keep the dam intact. The water, or truth, that gets out is real water, but it's advertised as it's tainted or something regular people should stay away from, or that water's for crazy conspiracy theorists. Nevertheless, the water still must be released, for the dam will break. The Alex Jones then snatches the water up, he bottles it by putting his big fat face on it, and then nobody normal will drink it. Nobody normal will even buy it. If it's not crystal clear at this point, Farmer Alex works for the main Tyson Ranch himself. He works for President Snow in the Capitol. Most animal farms are on the, quote, right side of the political spectrum, because that's the cell block where 99% of the escapes take place. Think of all the conservative animal farms out there as, say, Foxconn suicide nets to catch jumping chickens trying to escape the main pen. At its core, conservatism is a very normal thing. It's the logical progression for anyone who is not mentally ill. Who of any normal frame of mind would not look around this $4 trillion behemoth government of waste and corruption and not see that something very effed up is going on? Amazingly, about a quarter of the country, Democrats, see no problem at all with Jabba the Hutt being a few thousand pounds overweight. That's no problem. These people will readily tune into Rachel Maddow and Lawrence O'Donnell and the rest of the buffoons on MSNBC to see what more the government should be doing and what more the government should be spending to help people. Oh, and there's another war. Ho-hum, yawn. Another war? Nobody on either side gives a shit. Although the two sides of the political spectrum is fake, there's only one system, folks, behind the curtain. The talk show host Michael Savage, a farmer himself, said it best. He said, "Liberalism is a mental disorder." That's true. It really is that simple. If one is a Democrat in 2019, no matter what is real and what is fake, if one is a Democrat after all that's happened, one has a mental disorder. Period. That doesn't mean that these people are dumb from an IQ perspective. I'm sure 98% of Elon Musk's employees are likely Democrat. Almost all college professors, these smart people, Mensa members, are Democrat. Some of the most degreed up Mercedes-Benz owners are Democrats. Doesn't mean anything. They're politically the stupidest people on earth. At least on the political right, conservatism, there are notions that make a bit of sense, like fiscal restraint, get your hands out of my pocket, tax sanity, a push for certain freedoms like the Second Amendment, understanding there's been a rape of the Bill of Rights. People on the right side, they have a clue at least. Democrats, the self-righteous insane, don't even seem to care about the rape of the Bill of Rights. See, conservatives following, say, Sean Hannity are fooled, but they're very sane. There's a difference. Those watching MSNBC asking the government to stick its tentacle even farther up their ass are both fooled and insane. Yes, the first step for most people in waking up to reality is the baby step of conservatism. There are other paths in, but this one is the most common. The system knows this. The controllers have been incredibly successful using conservatism as their main suicide net to catch jumping chickens. Fox News is their lead orc, with all the other radio talk show hosts goblins marching behind. Conservative hosts all dangle a carrot of freedom that is never really bitten. Never quite there, are we? If we can win just one more election, the America of 1776 will be restored, and we can watch the procession of Hillary Clintons going to jail from our alehouses. Didn't QAnon promise something like that? Beyond these conservative farmers with the big names that you know, there are hundreds more on YouTube in case a wild horse breaks out of a big Rush Limbaugh pen and isn't quickly rustled up into a Glenn Beck pen, for example. Those who question reality are relassoed into a new pen, seared with a glowing brand, and broke again so they can be ridden by the system. The animal farmers are able to keep the fresh recruits in the new pen satisfied because the farmers there are delivering lots of fresh feed, which is a metaphor for new information backed by real truth. They will tell you about the fraudulent fractional reserve banking scam and the Fed. They'll tell you how it's likely the British helped stir up the Civil War and that it wasn't primarily fought over slavery. A few will even tell you that America created and funded ISIS in the Middle East. Now, people new to these pens hear such unbelievable things for the first time that were never mentioned on CNN that they think they found the Messiah of truth and are finally getting the whole story. Most will get trapped on a farm, like the Limbaugh Ranch, forever. At each level, only a smaller and smaller group will break free because the escape attempts seem to stop. There's always a graduated animal farm that will deliver a bit more truth, but all of them will keep the biggest secrets from their livestock at all costs. Actually, most of these farmers themselves don't even know the role that they are playing. For example, the Lionel Nation, he's not in on it. He might be as fooled as everyone else. He's not given backroom information. He's a useful idiot. Most conservative talk show hosts likely still believe there are two sides to the political spectrum and there are two parties, Republicans and Democrats, at odds with each other, and American democracy is 100% real. Most talk show hosts on the radio probably believe that. They're not in on it. Of course, the big guys at the top, like Limbaugh, Beck, and Alex Jones, likely know exactly what is going on, and they understand they are simply playing their part in the big play. Most human beings only live to a defined age range of 70 to 85 or a little bit longer. Since most people under age 40 don't really give a shit about anything but materialism, that's not a long time the controllers need to keep you distracted before you die. They must bind you and blind you with only 35 years of distraction. Just that little window. They have to keep you tied up on these animal farms for you until you get too old to do anything about it anyway. And most oldsters go to their graves watching Fox News, thinking they have it all figured out. As mentioned, the progression through the farms on the Republican side, starting with conservatism as the springboard to find truth, is far easier to understand. It's way more normal and not insane as it is on the left. These people, these conservatives, ask good basic questions when they start their journey toward truth. They might say, I see the government's taking $1,000 out of my paycheck, so where the hell's the money going? Why are there thousands of more laws added every year? Why aren't the old laws ever taken off or removed? How can ignorance of the law be no excuse when there's 1 million pages of laws? I'm 56 years old. What the hell do I get for $4 trillion spent a year? Why is the Affordable Care Act called the Affordable Care Act if my premiums just went up again? These smart questions are a hallmark of conservatism, and in that regard, we applaud them. 1 million good questions that these animal farmers must be very skilled in answering, so smart people don't ask too many more questions that lead to more escape attempts outside the current animal farm. The idea is for the animal farmers to make all of the insanity on the world news seem absolutely normal, and that's no easy task. Did you ever wonder how Rush Limbaugh could be worth well over $500 million? How can some guy on a bunch of 2-bit AM radio stations bitching about the government every day with some snarky, obnoxious attitude be making about $40 million a year. How much are the commercial sponsors paying for their 30-second spots when he runs commercials? You see, it doesn't matter if the ad revenues cover the costs of his show or not. The sponsors probably don't even spend enough to pay Rush's salary. It doesn't matter if the show loses $50 million a year. It probably does lose $50 million a year. In terms of what Limbaugh means to the control structure and keeping the control structure in place, he's worth billions or tens of billions. The entire control structure hangs on the balance of good animal farmers keeping the people satisfied, and Limbaugh himself is Old MacDonald in doing it. For 3 hours a day, Limbaugh will complain about the government, and the people will vent their anger vicariously through him. In the end, Limbaugh cements to the listeners that the system is completely real and normal. Sure, the feds and the federal government is a bit out of control, and there's always corruption, but the listeners get a sense from Limbaugh that it's the best we can do. They feel that Rush is on their side, and if the system was not the best we could do, the big man would get really upset and start to throw his weight around and try to fix it and get angry. No senator could refuse a phone call from Limbaugh. These listeners and conservatives love being associated with their conservative Don Corleone or their conservative Tony Soprano, Limbaugh. When they tune in, they observe that Rush stays calm. He jokes around a lot. The world, must be in pretty good shape if Rush is in this good of a mood on most days. See, his mood keeps millions of animals on that animal farm, on that ranch, passive. Makes people believe everything's fine. See, Limbaugh would be really pissed if things were really as screwed up as the conspiracy theorists say they are. See, we'll fully restore freedom in the next election. Limbaugh will tell you we're close. Just need a little bit more time. We'll get him next time. See, if your party's currently in control, then we need to get out the dead wood of do-nothings like Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi. This is the reason that the congressional leadership is always as pathetic as it is and has deadbeats like Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell. It's the excuse they use as to why nothing ever gets done, even when your party's 100% in control. You can point to the deadbeat and say it's their fault. Nobody is ever accountable. Whenever a party is in control, of course, nothing ever changes. It's always pushed to the next election. Guys like Limbaugh are expert at moving the goalpost back just at the precise moment when you're ready to kick a field goal. One last time, there is no Republican and no Democrat. Behind the scenes, there is one system. However, a psychoanalysis of the Democrats is a fascinating exercise. The minions, the people that actually believe it's all real. After looking at all the evidence for a lifetime that reveals big government is all about corruption and waste and scandal, how can voting Democrat not be a mental disorder? I know we've talked about this already, but it's worth one more visit. There is no other way to describe it but mental disorder. You know I'm confident that the entire system is a ruse, is fake. But like I said, at least the conservative choice makes a bit of sense if things were real. Millions of, quote, liberals can actually observe a slobbering, rabid beast, which is the federal government itself. And with its billion-dollar-a-day waste and millions of total laws, they go to the polls and ask for more of it. How is that possible? It's mind-boggling. Speaking of animal farmers, do you remember the movie Animal House? Thank you, sir. Can I have another? Democrats will gladly bend over every 2 years for another, without lube. The leftist animal farmers exist on this side under the names like Bill Maher, Rachel Maddow, and other creepy creatures like Lawrence O'Donnell. The ace in the hole on this side of the fake fight to keep people who think they're so smart in the pen are the political comedians like Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert. The most uncaring and clueless people on earth get their news from these comedians. The libs who watch Colbert and Maher have higher IQs than most people. From an IQ perspective, they're supposedly smart. That does not mean they're not the most clueless of all when it comes to what's important. Salamanders have more common sense via their survival instinct than the people that watch Stephen Colbert. How society defines intelligence and the ability to put your shoes on are two completely different things. Most college professors are very smart in their specialty, but in seeing the way the world really works are the dumbest motherfuckers alive. Being, quote, smart is almost always paired up with a closed-mindedness because everyone in the room must be dumber than they are. The big degrees and all the titles that they hold tell these people that nobody around them can teach them anything because they're so smart. The controllers know this and they play off of it. The purpose of this liberal leadership is really far different than the Republican animal farmers because the millions who watch their lib shows on TV sense there's nothing wrong with the system itself. Libs are basically being raped in the ass who are sleeping through it. Perhaps the leaders of the liberal animal farms are even more skilled than the likes of Limbaugh because these farmers have to actually manage an insane asylum that's 1,000 times bigger than the Superdome. See, all Limbaugh has to do is get on air and complain about the government every day to people who already see that the government's screwed up already. The lib animal farmers find themselves speaking all day to chickens trying to cut off their own heads. But basically, they don't think they're harming themselves, if you see what I mean. However, in controlling their Democrat livestock, the lib animal farmers have an ace in the hole to make the impossible task possible. The lib animal farmer possesses an elder wand in this area. Their minions must always be on guard because the most vile of all creatures in the universe always lurks close by, Republicans. We know everything in this material realm is about duality. The left must balance the right and vice versa. Even without any occult significance or reference, two equal parties gives people the illusion the political system is real. What the hell did lib animal farmers do, say, for 8 years when conservatives were not in control? When Democrats were in control? They certainly couldn't complain about Jamie Foxx's Lord and Savior, Barack Obama. What'd they do all that time, these liberal animal farmers? How'd they spend their day? It's actually quite simple if you step down to their level. Democrats collectively have been convinced, the minions under the animal farmers have been convinced, that life itself ends if Republicans gain any more control. It matters not that nothing changes at all when the GOP seemingly does take control. No, the mantra is, Republicans must go no further. They must not gain one more inch of territory or we're all doomed. That is what the Democrats put out to their minions, and the minions lap it up. For some reason, they believe it. I don't know why. I mean, it's the same mantra over and over again. When the Republicans get in, nothing changes, but then they go right back to it, and it's believed. Now, some of these people watching Rachel Maddow, they might not even love the government, as a lot of libs do. And the atheists, of course, they're not very patriotic like the conservatives, so their master of ceremonies can't play on that fantasy. But they've all been lured into thinking that Republicans will soon end the world as they know it if they gain any more control. And that's enough for the libs that run the liberal animal farms. It's been enough, and it will continue to be enough. They fall for the same script. Even with Obama in the White House, the guard must never be let down because the Republicans are coming to destroy the environment. They're coming to destroy sexual rights. They're coming to discriminate against gays and transgenders. They're coming to destroy the world. That's what they put out, and they believe it. The freedom to kill your own baby on the liberal side must forever be maintained from those horrible Republicans. If you ever start a discussion group called, quote, "Should we kill our babies?" that's hate speech, and that cannot be tolerated. The liberal animal farmers are successful in recruiting every single nutcase with an agenda who sees the Marcellus Wallace of the federal government as the tool to push their agenda down everybody's throat. From, quote, abortion rights to tree huggers, the federal government is the very best way in the world to honor freedom by making millions bow down to the Mississippi River of agendas that seem to endlessly come from the left. Yes, the entire Democrat structure and its animal farms are very hard to figure out. If something truly is a mental disorder, though, there's no reason to spend any more time in trying to understand it than we've done here. Just brand it as crazy and move on. Along the path of truth, along the path of waking up, there will be 1,000 animal farmers attempting to lure you into every pen imaginable. Picture a 1,000-mile-long yellow brick road lined with whores of straw, tin, feline, and terrier. Don't take the bait. Don't even talk to the whore. If you ever enter a farm, do it willingly and do it with the idea that you can use the farm to collect some information about the system itself, but be wary. The animal farmer who runs his pen is a chicken molester.